Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now for our joys and sorrows. And we usually start with the children first, and I see we have two children present. Oliver, are you going to speak? Okay, Oliver. I'm going to ask Diane and then Harvey to come up and have a little volunteer appreciation. I have to say that we have a lot of volunteers. Actually, I would love to know how many thousands of hours of volunteer work go into this congregation. Harvey is shaking his head like he doesn't know. It was a rhetorical question, Harvey, so you don't have to have an answer. So anyway, Diane and Harvey, if you'd like to come up.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Jim asked Harvey and I just to speak a little bit what we think about volunteering at Buff. And I reflected on it a little bit, and I decided that volunteering here is what Buff is. It's what Buff is about. Just look around you. The music, lighting the chalice, the poems, the readings, everything that is done in a service comes from the minds and the hearts of the community here. And when we leave this room, we take that out of this room. Think of all the gatherings, all the RE, all the art, all the music, everything that is shared here comes from the hearts and the souls and the minds of the community. Then when we leave this building, we take it into the community. Volunteering is what Buff is about. I think it is the community that we is, and it's what we share with each other. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning again. Volunteerism makes the world go round. Thanks, Jim, for asking me to speak a little bit. Yes, I do volunteer a bit around here, and many others do too, and that is a good chunk of what happens here. Yes, we have paid staff, but like a lot of things in life, we have our jobs, our family, but then what do we do that we're raising our hand for that we do on our own volition, contribute, pledging. That's all volunteerism, and no one's making you do that. You don't have to pay, like you have to pay taxes. That's not a volunteer activity, but the Buff is. None of you have to be here. Nobody made you be here. Anybody forced into being here will oh, talk more, you say? Or you? Well, you were forced? Oh, you were pointing to yourself. All right, we'll talk. We try not to make it stressful, but sometimes Jim asks us to speak, and some of us don't want to do that, including myself. Generally, I'd rather be walking in the woods somewhere, but I do, of course, believe this is a worthwhile organization. You heard me mention that a few committees are, voted on and such, but social justice, nobody's voting on who's being the chair. There's nothing written anywhere saying we have to have a monthly meeting. It's just not written anywhere. In fact, that social justice committee at one point was meeting like once a year, and it was Charles and Gloria and I, whatever, 5-10 years ago, and there's just nothing on paper. Now we've got a half a dozen people who participate, and thank you, Clark and Nancy, for leading that one. And the Green Sanctuary Committee, we dreamed that up out of whole cloth like 7 years ago. It's a UUA program. Diane and I now lead that. What's the word? Episodically? No, we do plenty of things. We try to announce what we're doing in the Buff announce. Hey, we're going to clean up the yard. We're going to paint something, but we're not that good at communicating. We'll try to do better at getting folks, listing what committees and who's on it. Frankly, and I'll take responsibility for that as committee person and board president. That's certainly always a challenge to because it's different every year, right? Who's on the board, who's on the committee, who left, it's bouncing balls, and it's done by volunteers mostly. Anyway, thanks volunteers. Get involved, talk to me if you have questions on what on earth am I talking about, but we'll try to snag you, or you can, better yet, you migrate to whatever you feel like doing. And if you don't have time and don't feel like doing it, then that's fine, but you're certainly welcome to join in. It takes a village, and Buff is one of our little villages, one of our little communities that some of us have. I have other secret communities that I'm involved with I can't tell you about, like sail racing, stuff like that. All right, thank you.
Well, for all the volunteering that goes on, there's one person who has been steadfast in volunteering. I remember when I first started here that she was always here before I was here, and she was always here after when the building was being locked up. Dorothy was still here watering plants and doing that sort of thing. So Dorothy, we would like to honor you today for all your hard work, not only just in terms of, just being here, because I have to tell you that I think that if there were an award for attendance here, I'm pretty sure that Dorothy would win it, because she has been very, very reliable in attending church. But she's also been our bookkeeper. For how many years have you been our bookkeeper? Yeah. 10 years, a long time. So it got to be more than that, though, because because I've been here like over 13 years, and you were a bookkeeper then. So it's got to be a while. So at any rate, Harvey has baked a cake for you, and he has it there. And you can either like take that home and eat it by yourself, or you can share it at snacks after the service.
It's true. It's up to you completely. You can do what you want as well. You can use this gift certificate and go have dinner at the bistro. You can take whoever you want, wherever you want.
Well, thank you. I guess bookkeeping was my career, I guess, so I certainly enjoyed continuing the bookkeeping, but I'm getting a little feebler, so I thought it was time somebody else did it. So thank you very much. And I think we'll share the cake with everyone here after the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Champion volunteer Dorothy. Jim Fuller is taking that role on in the future, so you'll hear his name, or I guess if the things go smoothly, you won't hear his name, right?
Okay, well, this went so well in rehearsal.
We are going to sing in unison. Yes, chant for the seasons. Okay. Okie dokie. So, Jim, you want to start us on these words?
Yes, this fellowship is a community of ourselves. Its resources are our resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
So the words will appear. We are going to sing together, Chant for the Seasons, Summer Edition. This is one of the 4 verses. The no clouds have turned the star wheel. Summer is upon us. Turn the star wheel. Summer is upon us. Sorry. Gliding are the hawks, hovering above the hot and yellow hillsides. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel. Summer is upon us. Oops, I guess there's more. Let's do the crickets in the night, chirping in our ears, the sound of moonlit music. Vernal clouds have turned the star wheel, summer is upon us.
Okay. For that, Harvey, thank you, everyone. We sounded pretty good in that one, I thought. That's a nice melody. So right now, Janice, if you would come forward, I asked Janice to bring us a poem about the interplay of light and darkness.
Well, I'm afraid I brought a Father's Day poem. I hope that's okay. Okay, thank you. I didn't know about the interplay between light and dark, so I'm sorry. Someone played the cabaret, or someone played the ukulele during the cabaret, and it was so lovely. It was your daughter. And my father played the ukulele, and that's what inspired the poem. Those of you on Zoom, happy Father's Day. And to those of you moms who were dads, happy Father's Day also. My father's ukulele, for Jerome Bernard Zerfas. He was playing the ukulele in front of the barn, where the wheatgrass shimmered against his Hawaiian shirt, post-war, and which decommissioned brother gave him the shirt scrolled with feathers and pineapple crowns, and the light salt lick of yellowing cowboy hat. I look closely. Is it my father? Not yet enrolled in a factory, punching in the same circular grooves in bus seats and hospital beds, folding chairs and TV trays, until the metal changed from steel to aluminum to plastic roller casters. The same gray rifle metal as brown cattails he hung his lures on, forgetting some, using cat's cradles to catch pine warblers, and where the feathers landed, tricked and tied. Who took this picture anyway? Surely drunk with home-buried wine. My dad swaying or the camera swaying, both swaying together, laughing. And then the photo, perhaps because it was in the album, so long, smoldering. While corn roasted in a burning barrel, the barrel falling apart, a miracle it still held flame. And all those years of muskrat traps and falling rats, milk kept in the cistern, then forgotten, or derailed as the weather prohibited any navigation of mice tunneling or baby burial. The only joy, the dead child's name, Rose, invoking resurrection. They played spin the bottle and pass another whiskey jig. Bits of dead bird feather, that warbler, everywhere. Is that why he gave us, my sisters and myself, each Christmas, a ukulele, forgetting giving one the year before? What happened to them all? Or was there only one ukulele I had forgotten about, still there? I played when he couldn't hear it, attic, barn loft, closet, or so I thought, until I heard him hum a silly tune I had tried, 3 blind mice, while attaching the line to his fishing rod. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. That was lovely. I love the way you read. Okay, let's turn to our sermon for the day. And we're probably going to run about 5 minutes over, so but we can still do it today anyway. Before we get into leaning into the light, I would like to take a moment to talk a little Humanist Religion 101. You are aware that we are one of the few religions that respect the teachings of all the world's religions. How do we do that? Well, many human religionists, I am one, take the view that the great old religions are mythological, not historical. Yet most of us believe that religions like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Taoism, Native American expressions, Hinduism, and the various forms of paganism and Buddhism are still very valuable to our species. You've often heard me use the phrase, humanity creates the gods. We don't make them from nothing. We make them from ourselves. The characters in the myth, including God, are representational of the different components of the human psyche, just as I was talking about with the children, that there are light components and dark components within them. This is really true of all stories. The characters in a story are not about the different parts of ourselves. The story, if they were not, the story would not be interesting. Somewhere back in our dim history as a species, we developed the use of language, and with it the capacity to live symbolically. Being mammals, we had before that lived just like any other animal and responded to the world through our instincts. As the use of language became more refined, there had to be a way of managing our still present instincts. Religious myth does that by creating characters out of the different elements of our instinctual packages. Let's look at an example. We know that within the human spirit there are elements of light and elements of darkness. Many of the world's religious myths depict the forces of light struggling with the forces of darkness. In the Christian Gospel of Matthew chapter 4, often called the temptations of Jesus, for instance, we witness the struggle between Jesus, representing light, and Satan, representing darkness. Again, Christ and Satan are names for elements in every human psyche. Ours, the great Southern Catholic writer Walker Percy said, I'm going to change some words here, we are at once and the same time the hero and the anus of the universe. I used some word substitution there, as you probably could tell. The temptations of Jesus reminds us of the nature of our different darknesses, those parts of ourselves that we need to integrate into ourselves if we are to live worthwhile lives. A more modern example is the enduring TV series Law and Order. We never tire of watching this show, even though the plot is always the same. Can the people who follow the rules overcome those people who do not follow the rules? Light versus dark. We never lose interest in this show because our rule-following instincts are often dealing with the parts of ourselves who would flaunt the rules and live only for ourselves. So the religious myth, whether we are true believers or devout atheists, help us to manage our lives, making a story of the crowd of heroes and villains that everyone carries within them. It is better to be Christ than Satan. It is better to be a righteous police officer than a criminal who has little regard for human life. So that is one of the ways the religious myth helps us manage ourselves. For the Anishinaabe peoples, of which the Potawatomi are a subset, an important mythological figure representing human darkness is Windigo. Here is a description of Windigo imagined by Robin Wall Kimmerer in her excellent book, Braiding Sweetgrass. And now this is an advertisement. By way of footnote, I am organizing a community book study in South Bend for the Community Forum for Economic Justice on braiding sweetgrass. Has anyone heard of this book? Okay, quite a few of you, okay. This coming September. It will be led by Dr. Monica Tetzloff, Associate Professor of History at IUSB. Monica had a many-storied career, including teaching at the University of Ghana in Africa, where she addressed the civil rights of women accused of witchcraft. So she has a lot of stories to tell. And more about opportunities to sign up for that study are coming in a few weeks. So here's an excerpt from Braiding Sweetgrass that I have heavily edited and added some things to bring into the time constraints of this message. Windigo is the legendary monster of the Anishinaabe people, the villain of a tale told on freezing nights in North Woods. You can feel it lurking behind you, a being in the shape of an outsized man, 10 feet tall with frost-white hair hanging from its shaking body. With arms like tree trunks, feet as big as snowshoes, it travels easily through the blizzards of the hungry times, stalking us. The hideous stench of its carrion breath poisons the clean scent of snow as it pants behind us. Yellow fangs hang from its mouth that is raw where it has chewed off its lips from hunger. Most telling of all, its heart is made of ice. Tales of this terrible monster were told around the fire to scare children into safe behavior, lest this bogeyman make a meal of them, or with an infectious bite, turn them into a Windigo. For Anishinaabe children and adults alike, a key component of safe behavior is avoiding greed, especially but not only in times when resources are extremely scarce. The survival of the community is dependent upon the willingness of every member to take only their fair share of scarce resources. So important was this value that a member who could not control their greedy behavior might be exiled from the community and condemned to wander alone in the wilderness like the monstrous Windigo. Kimmerer continues, Windigo is the name for that within us which cares more for its own survival than for anything else. The very word can be derived from the root meaning, think only of yourself. Windigo is a close cousin of the Christian notion of Satan. To this definition, Kimmerer adds another from long-standing Christian traditions. Concupiscence, our disordered desire. It's unfortunate that so much of Christian teaching about disordered desire has focused on sexual desire to the near exclusion of other embodiments of disordered desires such as love of money, love of power, and greed. Disordered desire in its various incarnation is the Windigo in each of us, not simply in you or me as individuals, but in us as a society. Multinational corporations have spawned a new breed of Windigo that insatiably devours the earth's resources, not for need, but for greed. The footprints are all around us if you know what to look for. One can see where the Windigo has trod in vast forests of dying coral, tailing ponds, coal strip mines, closets stuffed with clothing seldom worn, epidemics of heart disease and diabetes, and tens of thousands dead in a war initiated by a person who would like to think of himself as another Peter the Great. In the wildfires of the American West, and in the tens of thousands of acres of soybeans grown on land that was once pristine jungle in the Amazon River Basin, and in the lust for power that endangers our American democracy. We are living in a time when our most serious overindulgent habit as humans is our addiction to fossil fuel. This addiction feeds the greed of the titans of the fossil fuel industry, who have garnered far more than their fair share of material wealth and political influence, and who have used their wealth and influence to propagate climate change denial as the stated environmental policy, which is so attractive to so many Americans. The scariest footprints of the Windigo are made by climate change deniers who hold many of the levers of power in Washington, D.C. They are using these levers to cause harm that will take years to undo. In such a time as this, it falls to spiritualities of all the great religions to inspire ordinary people to avoid the infectious bite of the Windigo, to think beyond our own survival, to acknowledge the complex interdependence of the creator order, and to embrace wholeheartedly the well-being of our home planet and all its various species of plants and animals. And that's the end of her excerpt. We can see how useful a metaphor Windigo is for thinking about the plunder of the planet and for thinking about our own darknesses, our own inner plunderer who wants everything for him or herself. Here's another metaphor that is one way or another is a part of religions both east and west. The basic metaphor is this: when the light shines in the darkness becomes the light. Let me translate that. When we shine the light of consciousness on our darkness, the dark destructive parts of our psyche actually become benevolent helpers in living a moral, compassionate, fulfilling life. One of my own darknesses is a desire to verbally strike down those with whom I am in political disagreement. My desire to strike out has become a useful bit of light. For me, it is an inner signpost that I am again wandering into territory where I am spit shining my ego. A longtime friend of mine has very much the same experience with her, in quotes, addiction to sugar. She recently informed me that she in one sitting ate 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's ice cream while she binged on 6 back-to-back episodes of Law and Order. She knows when the cravings become overwhelming that she has lost her spiritual bearings, needs to recenter herself in, again in quotes, her higher power, which is for her nature. So the title of this sermon is Leaning into the Light. Leaning into the light means focusing on our better angels of kindness, respect, and love for our species, for the whole planet, and hearkening to those parts of ourselves that want to build up and make whole. It also means shining the light of consciousness into our darkness, those parts that want to tear down and destroy, by taking responsibility for them and actually learning to love them. They are, after all, parts of ourselves. When we take responsibility for our darknesses, they are transformed into helpful guiding lights. Dare to actually know your darkness, and it will, over time, become the light of compassion, grace, and love for yourself, others, and for the planet. And now let's take just a moment to sit quietly and meditate. Just a minute. You don't have to assume any special position. Don't have to close your eyes. Just take a deep breath and let it all sink in. Oh, thank you, Candace. That was very nice. And now, Lady of the Seasons Laughter, hymn number 51, the great hymnal, and also on the screen.
Yes. It is new to us. Are we doing all four? Yes, yes. 4 verses, Lady of the Seasons. Second verse. Lady of the turning day. when we engage hands and hearts to end oppression, writing history's better page. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning age.
Okay.
First time
thank
through,
you.
good job.
Yep. You may need a little practice in that one, but you'll get it.
Life
So,
is practice, right?
next year at this time. So, with that, Harvey, would you unlight the extinguish the chalice? The light is extinguished, but hope remains. Thank you.